everyone, and welcome back to your weekly gaming podcast, the GamerGuild Podcast, where we get together and round up all of the weekly news for your listening or viewing pleasure right here on youtube.com/GamerGuild TV. Also available up there in the digital clouds on your platform of choice. You're joining myself, Chris, for the first time in 2024, alongside my lovely co-host, the man of many pixels, Mr. Richie.
It's not actually the first time. It's the first time we've
Just get on with it. Just get on with it. And below him, the returning Mr. Rob. Welcome back.
Thank you.
It's been a while. It's been a while. Or it has been for, I guess, our audience anyway. We've seen you quite frequently over Christmas. But yes, the trio is back. We're here to talk about games. We have a great show lined up to you to kickstart the year properly, even though Richie will be very particular and say we've actually already technically had an episode out. But this is the first time we've sat down to record. We can't wait for it. We're going to be talking about all of your upcoming PlayStation Plus games, GamePass games announced for the month of January 2024, and also looking ahead to the future and seeing what PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo, and maybe even PC have got in store for us as we look at the lineup for 2024 and beyond, and what we really know about it, because it's been an interestingly quiet year. Can 2024 eclipse 2023? Who knows? We'll get into it. All that and much, much more. But before we do get into all that, don't forget to like, subscribe, ring that bell so you're kept in the loop with all of the great content we do here on the show, on the channel. Just like this very show, our weekly live streams, podcasts, and Let's Plays. This past week, me and Richie dove into Halo 2.
We did.
And I had a great time with it once again. Any quick initial thoughts, Richie?
No, actually. My mind just
absolutely...
The podcasting cobwebs.
Did you enjoy the game? What do you think of the graphics?
I enjoyed it.
What do you think of the storyline? Blank.
Yeah, just blank.
It's one of the most impactful
really
games of all
enjoyed it.
time.
Like,
Just no opinion on it at all.
No opinion.
It's like it's beige.
It is a video game. Graphics-wise, there is a choice of graphics. You can choose the old style or the slightly older style.
I sound like you're just reading the system requirements off the back of the box now.
Yeah.
It runs on Windows.
You need at least 4 gigabytes of RAM to run it.
This is exactly what happened, viewers, when we asked Richie how his Christmas was. He was like, it happened. It was a thing. How about New Year? It also happened. It was like, yeah, very, very descriptive. But in reality, we jumped into Halo 2. We hadn't played... We obviously were always going to get around to it. That was the plan. And it had been a minute since we played Halo 1. So we're about halfway through the story, we think. We're playing it via cloud gaming as well. I had a great time with it. I was incredibly impressed with the cutscenes, which they had redone for the Master Chief Collection. But I really appreciate how they're opening up the wider world. It's not just the Chief and the humans, it seems like. There's an actual... Similar to Mass Effect, there's like a whole council of like creatures who aren't like just cannon fodder. They actually have their own society and language and all that. And it's starting to build out that mythos where I can see it getting really
very
intriguing.
much expand on the Covenant. Rather, when the first game it was just like they were kind of there. These are the baddie aliens. Now they're expanding. Okay, there's a religion going on. There's actually multiple species and stuff. There's a bit more going on than just bad aliens.
Bad aliens. You get back in your box. Rob, have you played Halo 2 before in the past?
A long time ago. Like we're talking like original release was when I played it.
That's right. So 20 years, because we actually realised just before we went live this week that Halo 2 is actually celebrating its 20th anniversary later this year, and that made us go like, oh shit, yeah, no wonder the graphics needed maybe redoing for the cutscenes.
Yeah, it would be interesting to go back and actually, like, when I played that game, like it was the best graphics ever, and like how could graphics ever get better than this game? And it would be interesting to go back and actually see. Oh no way!
Well, if you go on the Master Chief Collection, you can like start off in the original graphics, press the select button, and it changes into the Master Chief version graphics, and they still look quite dated now because that's been about 10 years.
Does it support ultra wide? That's the key issue for me.
I don't know. I was playing on console. Chris, you playing cloud PC, so I'm not sure there, but natively you might.
All the same, holds up again, like in terms of just gameplay, just pure fun, just like classic shooter thing. I'd be intrigued to know if you were like a child today who's never really played one, how it would hold up compared to kind of modern day shooters, because like there's still things like you can't really aim down the sights properly, the movement's it's more like strafe left, strafe right than it is dynamic look everywhere. Like it still functions perfectly fine, but we come with a background in growing up with that stuff, so I'd be very interested to see plonk a 14-year-old in there today and go, there's the control, and watch them go like, what's happening?
Try aim down the sights and throw a grenade.
Yeah, so yeah, well, I mean, we did that 100 times. But fun either way. As I said, we're halfway through. Most likely, we might get it wrapped up this Thursday. So go check it out. Halo 2 live stream up there, celebrating its 20th anniversary here on the channel. It's been a while since we got together and spoke. Obviously, we recorded our previous 2 shows back to back to get them out in line with Christmas, meaning we once again went another entire calendar year without missing a beat. Every Monday, episodes gone live at the exact same time into our 5th year now. And I guess, Rob, I'll throw it over to you first. You've been busy with work. You're back. Did you manage to find any time over the festive period to play games, and what have you been playing?
So I actually did. I actually played a fair bit of stuff, but it was always in like really awkward time slots and like really kind of like squeezed in between work. So what have I played since we last spoke? I'll give you like game and then like very brief impressions, and we can dig into them.
I want systematic requirements first, like Richie.
Okay,
that's what
right.
Richie wants.
Let's go back. All right, Starfield.
Oh yes.
All right.
Forgettable, abandoned.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That took a turn. Is that after the end of the story, or obviously no spoilers?
No,
but
didn't even get to the story.
So you didn't even go as far as we did.
No, I just got sick of the load screens and stuff. Like
It was
I don't know.
painful.
It just felt old. Let's just say that. Spider-Man 2. Okay. It was like more of the same for me, I guess. Like it was good, and it was like a more polished and refined version of
it's basically more Spider-Man.
Yeah, it's more Spider-Man, which is fine. That's cool. What else was there? Ace Combat 6, because it was on GamePass, and I just kind of was at 7, one of the two, just wanted to play it. That was actually pretty good. I was surprised by how far those games have went, so that was good. And then I picked up Red Dead Redemption 2 in a sale, and I don't know if I mentioned this on a previous episode, but I abandoned that game when it first came out in the very first chapter.
I think we spoke about it at the pub. I think it was the snow chapter, wasn't it? Just too much
snow.
Yeah,
like up in the mountains was like super like slow, and it was a struggle to kind of get past that. And like, even to be fair to it now, like some of the mechanics are a bit kind of clunky in that game with regards to like, I don't know, just some like the button prompts and stuff.
I got the vibe it was like it's like too meticulous. It's similar to how San Andreas kind of rubbed me up the wrong way back in the day. Like it was fun going to the gym once or twice, but then when you have to keep doing physical things to keep fit, it's like, all right, this is getting tedious now. And I think Red Dead Redemption echoed that a bit with like, get the cooking stuff, take to the thing, get the material. It was like, right, I don't want to live life as a cowboy. I want the shooty action, take down the bad guys, riding on a horse kind of action. Not the let's set up a camp and barter with the local salesman just to get the best deal. It was like, okay.
Yeah, exactly that.
That's why I kind of just never bothered with it, because it's like, I appreciated what it was doing, but it's like, that's not what I want.
No, I mean, that's very surface level, though. Stick with it.
The turning point of this conversation is that once, like, the story, and particularly Arthur and Dutch, get you, like, hooked into their characters, fuck me, that is a good game. Like, probably up in my top 5 once I actually got past that first, like, snow chapter.
Yeah. I think we chatted at the pub, didn't we? So we both cried at the same part. It was like, you don't expect it. And then
I've never ever cried. I don't think I've ever cried at a game before, but
ever. I've never cried.
I don't think I've cried at a game. Maybe Uncharted.
And it got
Maybe not.
Yeah, and that's the characters, right? Like the build up and the draw you in. You start to realize like you see yourself through those eyes, and there's like a definitive turning point in the story. I think probably about 2/3 in. Where you start thinking like, oh shit, this is different, and then
like I can't praise it enough, and I don't think this is a spoiler, but maybe spoilers a fair game now anyway for this game. But like the final part of the epilogue, where there's a character you get to deal with, like I shot that guy in the dick about 6 or 7 times, and it was the most satisfying conclusion to a story I've ever had. So
yeah, if you've played the first one, it adds a lot of gravitas to it as well, to that whole scene.
Yeah.
It's like 15 years in the making of let me take this guy out. But yeah, Red Dead 2, interesting. So all the games then seem to have taken the grip as well. How about yourself, Richie? Had some time off over the festive period. What have you been playing? Besides
only
Halo.
Final Fantasy 16. Yeah, only Final Fantasy 16. I finished roll credits over Christmas, and I've been working on the platinum. I'm about 3 trophies away from the platinum at the moment, working on my Final Fantasy playthrough. Probably about 2/3 of the way through the story now. The only other 2 is, one is the max out every single icon's abilities.
The skills,
which is just, which is a bit of a grind, but I'm hoping I'll get that as I play through the Final Fantasy playthrough, or at least very close.
Yeah.
And then it's just the Chronolith trials.
Yeah, the Chronolith
Which
trials.
I don't like kind of these skill-based trials for trophies, which is why I usually leave them to the end.
Yeah. Did you play the Echoes of the Fallen DLC as part of your natural run? Or are you saving that?
Yeah.
You did?
Yeah, I played it. I have 1 trophy to get there, actually, where I missed one of the rings.
Unlucky. Gotta go back.
I think there is a Final Fantasy playthrough in there as well, so...
Yes, I think there is. I think when I did Echoes of the Fallen, it continued on from my Final Fantasy difficulty playthrough, so I did it without even realising.
Well, that's why I kind of thought, well, I could go back and grind my way halfway up this bloody tower to find this ring, the one thing I've missed. Or I could just wait until I finish my Final Fantasy playthrough and I'll probably pick up naturally.
Yeah, that makes sense. Can we focus in on as well as the 3 guys you meet in the hoods who kind of do a lot of running around in Echoes of the Fallen?
Yeah.
Their accents are very, very local to us. I found them jarring as all hell hearing them talk because they're so northeast area. It was just like, oh, you just don't sound like a video game character because they're so, oh, hey, man, are you coming round for tea tonight? Like, it was really weird.
And it didn't really fit with any of the regions you've been to. So it's like, if there was a region that you went to, and everyone sounded like Northeast England, it's like, oh, fair enough, you use Northeast England as a template for this nation, but that just doesn't exist.
Yeah, it was quite surreal to hear Clive with his grisly, hardened accent going we need to find the crystals, and then this guy going, oh wait mate, they're just around the corner. It's like, what? That just doesn't work. But it might just be us being local to it. It's a bit jarring because traditionally it's like Queen's English, King's English, and then a bunch of posh, tough accents in there. But yeah. Either way, fun all the same. I personally surprised Richie the other week by saying I've actually started Sea of Stars, which I think you didn't expect me to, did you, Richie? But I dove in.
Nope.
Of course, that was the indie game of the year last year at the Game Awards. It was free on GamePass. It was free on PlayStation Plus. Sold 5 million copies on Switch as well. So absolute smash hit. I'm absolutely loving it. I can't even remember why I really got into it. I was in that weird gap between Christmas where I was like, what do I start? Do I start Avatar? Do I do Cyberpunk? I thought it's something a little bit different. And I've very much played it on my PlayStation Portal, which I explained to Richie, so it's very much a handheld game for me.
I think it's a perfect Portal game.
And it does. It plays so well. Gal's my boy, Richie. He's just absolute legend that he is. I thought, actually, you probably know, I thought I'd finished the game, and then I hadn't finished the game, and it just opened up into oh no, there's a lot more here. That's happening. I did that last night, so thoroughly enjoying it. It does kind of remind me of Pokemon in a way, but a different version of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, with it's got the kind of rock paper scissors mechanics a bit, hasn't it? Where you got enemies have shields based on the type, so if you hit them with that type, it breaks the shield, and then you can do more damage stuff. But
no, thoroughly enjoying. Again, never really played one of the old Final Fantasy games, but I'd imagine that's akin to what it is similar to.
I think it's closer to something. Chrono Trigger is the one that always comes to my mind in terms of the combat, and well, actually, I think one of the composers who worked on Chrono Trigger actually worked on this game as well. So musically, it does sound quite similar.
I've been humming the music in my head all month long. But visually, artistically, gorgeous. Music's fantastic. Gameplay is fun, and the story's phenomenal as well. I'm loving the layers of the story and the way it feeds you to it. I was explaining to you during the break. I kind of felt like I wanted to read a book almost during my time. It's been a while since I've read a good old book with my actual eyes. And I started this, and because a lot of it is reading text instead of voice actors, I found myself actually a few chapters in. I was I feel like I am just reading a really good book, but then I get to play those segments as well. So it's actually the best of both worlds.
That's the thing I was surprised about, because I knew you'd enjoy the story. It's the fact that you're playing a turn-based JRPG.
I know, look at me.
That has no voice acting.
Look at me. Trying
You've
different
grown up.
I've grown up. But speaking of growing up, we've got to get into the show as well. Thank you for everyone again who's tuned in, watched our shows over the last year. It's been a great one, and we can't wait to head into 2024 with all the news in the years ahead. Typically this time of year it is a little bit quiet, so there's a couple of smaller news stories, and I think what we'll do is we'll get into the kind of the year ahead for all the major consoles stalls and see what our hopes are, what the dreams and expectations, and what we're excited for in terms of the game lineup as well. I think we're probably going to get some kind of showcases imminently. It seems like we're heading into the year very blind on almost what's going to happen in the back half of the year, which is very rare for the industry. So there are rumours swirling around that we're going to get an Xbox Developer Direct back end of January. We've had a PlayStation Showcase that's been set up for, I feel like we've been talking about it since September. That's still never actually happened. But now Spider-Man's gone. Final Fantasy is on the horizon. There's literally nothing we know for the back end of this year. So we'll get into all that. And Nintendo, are they ever going to get around to talking about their damn secret Switch that is clearly in the development and in the works? But we'll get into all that. Rob, upon your return, if you could do us the honours of introducing us to the
graciously gathered GamerGuild Gazette, aka the news.
The news. Coming to you live in 2024. Richie, were you disappointed that I let Rob read the news?
No, he's calling me out because just as he was about to start, I asked actually who's doing the jingle.
Yeah. Just as I was about to start.
Yeah, that wasn't the issue, Richie.
Yeah.
The issue was how poorly timed it was.
It was perfectly timed.
It wasn't. Depending on what you were going for, maybe.
Your phone going off at a funeral.
It almost was, yeah. But speaking of the news, as always, brought to you by our wonderful guild heroes, the fantastic folks who support us that extra little bit further, just like you can. Over on YouTube, you can click join below the video. From as little as 99 pence, you get early access to this very show, stickers and badges next to your name in the chat, a couple of extra perks and videos that go live, such as when Richie decides to jump into Zelda. He sometimes puts some 0.5 videos up. Doing some exploration, right? So we kind of like to tease little things out there. I think this year our intention is to maybe get a little bit more out for members. It is just always that difficult thing where, for the sake of the channel, you want the current content out immediately. You don't want to gatekeep it behind anything and then miss your kind of window to get the most traction.
Yeah, that's why the Zelda stream I did for members works quite well, because there's no story content in it at all. It's just kind of clean up stuff. But it's there.
But we'll look at it. And again, we want some lovely dialogue with our members to see what we can do to kind of enrich the program as such for you as we head into 2024. We do have ideas, but we'll talk about that as the year goes on. But thank you for your continued support. Thank you to all the fine people, again, who kind of up the membership heading into the new year. We do appreciate that as well. Different tiers, you get the same thing. We've always said we don't want to gatekeep things behind different tiers just because someone either can't afford or doesn't want to stretch to that £5, £6 level. We didn't want to unfairly lock stuff behind, oh, you're a gold tier, so you get more stuff than bronze tier. So it's more just whatever you want to charitably donate to us, but we do appreciate you all out there. It helps make the content that little bit better and helps us reinvest in the channel as well. Right then, gents, news, as I said, quite light, but we've got a few quick stories to get into to kick things off, starting with PlayStation Plus games for the month of January. We got a couple drop, I think it was between Christmas, all playable now, so if you're watching this show on the Monday, listen to the show on the Monday, they're all up and running. We have a Plague Tale Requiem, the sequel to Plague Tale Innocence, running on PS5. We have Evil West running on PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. That is the American Frontier shooter where you're hunting down vampires. And then we've got Nobody Saves the World on PS4 and PS5 as well, along with some extra bonus content for Warframe, which still shocks me that Warframe is still a thing. It's still running after all these years, but it is there. Gents, Richie, I'll start with you. What do you think of the start to the month for PlayStation Plus?
Surprisingly good. I think last year PlayStation Plus, the initial monthly games were always a bit lackluster, and then often like the mid-month reveals for like the extra tiers kind of compensated quite a bit. But Plague Tale Requiem, this is probably going to be my next game.
Are you?
Because I was planning to play it after Innocence, and then I just never got into it. And I think at the time I said part of the issue was going from playing Plague Tale Innocence at like very slick 60 frames per second to jump straight down to like 30 felt a bit clunky, and it was like I'm not enjoying it the same way. I just need a break, then go back, and then I never did.
It was the frame rate, right?
Yeah, it was the frame rate. It was a bit jarring. I don't mind playing games in 30 frames per second, but to go from 60 immediately into 30 can feel a bit jarring as a straight jump. So I think this might be about the right time for me to go back and try again. Plus, once I've got the Platinum Final Fantasy, I don't know what my next game's going to be before February. I need something to fill up January, and I think this is probably about the right size of game to do it.
You need something before the next Final Fantasy.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I thoroughly enjoy Plague Tale Requiem. I think the duology so far is fantastic. It's very, it's not, I don't want to say inspired by The Last of Us, but it's got a lot of like third person action adventure tropes that come from that.
It's a similar style of game.
Yeah, the gameplay works, and again, lovely, phenomenal voice acting, great story in there as well, and just something a little bit different as well. It's got an element of supernatural. It's set in an era which we don't really see that much of. It's a game based in France, got French voice actors as well, so it's got that slightly different style to it. But yeah, Plague Tale Requiem is the first one. The other one, Evil West. Rob, I'll throw it over to you. Evil West was one that kind of caught my eye when it originally launched, and unfortunately it came at that time where everybody was away playing phenomenal games in the year that was 2023. Shame it didn't come to Game Pass. I feel like I had my eyes on it if it was on Game Pass, and then I remember at the time I think I was looking to buy something else. Didn't come out, and then kind of skipped on it. But it's third person. You're hunting zombies as a Western. It ticks a lot of boxes for me.
Yeah, me too. So I think I was quite similar to you. I can't remember what caught my eye above this game, but when I saw it come out, I was like interested in the concept enough to like take a punt on it anyway. So yeah, I'm kind of happy it came. I think it'll be something I dig into for a couple of hours, see if it captures me. I'm kind of in that Western frame of mind at the moment, anyway, so like that kind of helps. But generally, like I'm pleasantly surprised by January's kind of output.
Yeah, I think looking at it, I think we described it as it looked like Outriders in The Division, but you're killing zombies as a cowboy, which sounds like a perfect combo. Graphically, it looks great. I think it might actually... It's from Focus Entertainment. I'm not sure if it runs in the same engine as Plague Tale, but that's 2 games coming to PlayStation Plus, both from the same publisher, so I wonder if there's some kind of like deal behind the scenes that's struck to get these on, because yeah, that's 2 games that aren't that old. Obviously, Requiem went into Game Pass day 1, so a lot of people probably played it on Xbox, but now they're coming a little bit later. But both of them, I think, within the last year and a half, I want to say off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Evil West was November 2022. So I think it might have been Resident Evil Village that probably got in its way a bit.
Yeah, potentially.
More zombies.
Because Village was October 2022.
Could have done that. But yeah, all the same, that's another good one. The only one I'm not really clued up on is Nobody Saves the World. I feel like I've heard of it a few times, like mentioned, but I don't know anything about it. Either of you two?
There's too many of these types of indie games to like...
You look at the artwork and go, I feel like I've seen that, but I can't place it.
We've probably covered it on the channel before.
Nobody Saves the World trailer. So let's see.
Looks like a solid game, to be honest.
Yeah, reading from the description. It says, when the ancient calamity reawakens, who can save the world? Nobody. That's you. You're nobody. Master the art of transformation to become a slug, ghost, dragon, and more in this new take on action RPGs from the creators of Guacamelee. That's why the art style looks so familiar. Complete quests to discover and swap between 15 varied and distinct forms, with each offering its own unique set of quests, which can complete in creative ways, mix match abilities, etc., etc. So, Nobody Saves the World from Drinkbox, which is the Guacamelee people. Sounds like a bit like Monster Boy in the way you're kind of switching between different different creatures as you go through it. Got that 2D kind of 3D style that Guacamelee is famous for. It'll have that, I think, quirky humour that Drinkbox are famous for, it looks like, looking at the trailer.
Yeah, a Metacritic is in your low 80s, high 70s, depending on reviewer, and depending on platform. I think a game like this tends to get a bit of a bump in terms of its rating when you look at the Switch version versus, say, the PlayStation version. So I look at the game and go, I actually would rather trust the Switch reviews for a game like this, because it feels more like a game that's more a home on the Switch. But yeah, I think low 80s should be decent. So I think this is just a solid month, to be honest. I really have no complaints at all. 3 good games. PlayStation Plus is back.
In a month where you typically don't expect much as well, especially January.
Yeah, I've just downgraded my PlayStation Plus subscription as well. So I'm on the base level now.
Oh, you have to see that.
So this is good news for me if I'm getting good monthly games, because the mid-month stuff I'm not getting anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But Yeah, that was a hard decision. Like, basically, after a year of not playing anything on PlayStation Plus and also wanting to cut down on the expenditure, I had to make the decision. So, my subscription was up this month, so that's it.
Well, it's back.
You lost me, Sony. You got to win me back.
They do. That's the whole point of the subscription service, right? They have to fight for your subscription amongst a sea of other things. I've just signed up to Paramount Plus, because they were offering like a full year for $34.95 or something, so like half price for the full year. And me and the wife have just been watching some old South Park episodes. I think we initially wanted to watch it to start going through CSI, because thinking, there's like 25 seasons of that, and she's never watched it, but she enjoys like Criminal Minds and stuff.
Yeah.
Logged in, paid for it, bought it, and went to CSI. Season 21, 22, and 23 are there. Nothing else is. So it's like, you bastards, you absolute bastards. So hence we're just watching South Park now. We're just going back and watching like all of the short movies that came to it. But it's that thing where it's just another streaming service. I now, thanks to my internet provider, I've now got Apple TV for 2 years as well.
I got
Amazon Prime, and then Amazon Prime's going up, I think, or they're adding ads into it as of this month. So it's just a whole thing. On top of that, it's just a whole thing. But yeah, I'm no surprise, Richie. So PlayStation have to win you back, because of course you might pivot and go over to Game Pass and Xbox. They too have a decent month to kickstart off the year. Looking at Game Pass for January, we got some new additions in Wave 1, featuring Close to the Sun, January 3rd, Hell Let Loose, January 4th. January 9th, we have Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Figment. January 11th, we've got Super Mega Baseball and We Happy Few. And then January 16th, we have Resident Evil 2 and Those Who Remain. So, Rob, I'll throw it back over to you then to kickstart January. Which standout games have you got coming to Game Pass in January?
I mean, for me, it has to be Resident Evil 2. I mean, I've played, like, the bones of that game already, but that's a super strong title, like, to have in January, I think. Obviously, Assassin's Creed Valhalla is the second big one, I guess. But I don't know. Nothing can make me be interested in that game. I don't know why. I tried to play it when it was on first came to PlayStation Plus. Just couldn't get into it, and I don't know. It's just something about that game which never drew me in.
We've mentioned it before, haven't we? In terms of just like value proposition, but like imagine if you had Game Pass. You got an Xbox for Christmas. Your parents got you it. You got Game Pass, and then 2 weeks into having your console, you get given something like Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which is 120 plus hours of game, and then everything else in between that, and then something like Resident Evil 2 on top. So you're getting like AAA quality, like most revered, one of the best games of all time. It's just, what a combination. But I think Resident Evil's one for me still. So now I'm on the back of, like, I think looking at the start of the year, there's only really Helldivers on my slate. So I'm kind of like Richie, where I don't even have anything lined up for February. I have no current interest in Suicide Squad, which comes out in just over a month. Just under a month.
How's that game not out?
Well, even then, I've noticed the marketing has started to ramp up for it. But then, looking at the list of things that I want to get round and back to, Resident Evil's like massively on my radar, and I'm waiting for that announcement to say that they're remaking one, because Capcom announced they are doing more games. So it's like there's rumors about. I think we discussed it just before Christmas. Actually, I think it was one of the leaks. There's rumors around Code Veronica. Do they do Zero, or do they just go back and make the original RE in the RE engine? I think that will be the cherry on the cake for me, because then I just be like, right, I'm in, I'm committing, I'm playing 1, 2, 3, 4, and then probably by the time I get through them, 5 will be there. But now I'm almost
5's a hard one to remake.
I'm not sure.
They might
I'm
change
not sure
it.
you remake 5. I think that's where you end the remakes, because it's from 5 and 6 where the franchise really took a nosedive in terms of like its critical and like acclaim. They sold well. But
they could change it. That's the thing. They could, like, what they've done, like little tweaks they can do.
That's where I think you go back, you do Resident Evil 1, you do Code Veronica, Resident Evil 0, any other kind of like that, and then you continue this in a new direction past 4 that ignores the existence of 5 and 6.
But then on the next game, you have to include Chris like punching a boulder for some reason. I don't know. That can't be dropped.
I think you need to include some sort of reference to it as a kind of tongue-in-cheek acknowledgement. But
either way, like I want to play them, and I feel like I've got my I've got my feet wet now with like horror style games through what we've played on the channel. Like, but I might even go back to Dead Space because I had an absolute blast playing Dead Space with Richie on stream. But I don't want to do it on my own. I don't want to do it on my own. No, I want to do it with people. But I've started Resident Evil 2 twice now. We did it once on Halloween years ago, and we did it for Amazon Luna on stream. So I've like kind of looked at that opening so many times, and I know I'll love it. I just need to get over the fear factor element of it. So aside from that, though, Valhalla's another great game. I think We Happy Few probably shouldn't be overlooked as well. It's one of the games that, surprisingly enough, it's not already on Game Pass because it is owned. Xbox do own the studio behind We Happy Few, right? If I'm not mistaken.
I'm not sure. It's
Gearbox.
It was published by Gearbox.
It's Compulsion Games though, who they bought, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, parent organisation Microsoft.
But
so
the rights are usually with the publisher, not the developer. So.
Fair enough. I think Compulsion are working on what's their new one off the top of my head.
South of Midnight.
Yeah, I knew it was one of the new artsy ones they showed off at the last summer showcase, but I can't until we see more of these games. My brain can't quite put them into the box of which ones they are. So yeah, Compulsion working on that, interesting. But again, solid January, right? So all across the board, I think we're quite happy with those two. What are Nintendo doing for January, Richie? what are the giveaways for Switch Online?
I don't know. I've seen nothing that they're planning to add. They do technically. They don't have monthly games, but they do occasionally add to like the online subscriptions, like the N64, the SNES. Probably less the NES nowadays. So I think everything's on there already. But they do occasionally just add stuff to that, but not in any sort of like regular cadence.
Yeah.
Sometimes things just turn up.
Out of the blue. This random old ass game from 1985, which only 5 people have ever heard of or remember. It gets dropped.
It's Nintendo Switch Online with the expansion is like 35 quid a year.
Yeah, it's a bargain.
So I think it's an absolute
it's the same price as Paramount Plus for 1 year.
Yeah.
What would you rather do? But that's pretty much all we've got in terms of news. We'll get into some smaller stories after the big chunk of today's show, which is essentially going to be looking at the year ahead. So I think we'll kick things off. We'll stick with Xbox. We're talking about Game Pass. We'll stick with Xbox. We got I guess a stacked year. It's probably, I'd say, out of the big 3, Xbox is the one we know the most about because they were quite open at the showcase with some announcements, but at the same time they had that massive leak that happened, which kind of revealed everything. And then they had all the FTC court case with Activision Blizzard, which also revealed loads of stuff. So we kind of know more about Microsoft than we probably ever cared to hope.
But is that a double-edged sword, though? Because I'd say this is the one I'm least excited about.
Potentially.
It might just be because we know more, and you always have that expectation when you don't know it very much. Like we don't know much about PlayStation or Nintendo going forward. It's like, ooh, what are you working on? I'm very interested. It could be part of that. But.
Yeah, it could be. Kind of looking ahead then, we have the list of games confirmed to Game Pass. That's one of the great things with Xbox. When we kind of see announcements for things, we know stuff's coming further down the line. So just like glancing ahead, we know Hollow Knight Silksong, which is the follow-up to the amazing Hollow Knight, is confirmed. We don't know the date it launches, but we know it's coming to Game Pass. So they do that like little tease thing where we don't have no idea when it's coming out this year, but we know it's coming to Game Pass. And in amongst that, we've got loads of actual Xbox first parties as well. We won't go through them as a list, but I guess we'll throw them out to each other and just see where you want to pick up. Rob, I'll start with you. We've got the list in the doc. None of this is, we should say, probably confirmed for 2024. I think outside of maybe Stalker 2, Avowed, I think, and Flight Simulator 2024. That would kind of be disappointing if it missed the year of its namesake.
Yeah, I feel like that would be a missed opportunity.
And a couple of other little ones, but amongst that, everything else is kind of, it might come, it might not. So, Xbox 2024, what's your big hitter that you're hoping to see?
I think it has to be Hellblade 2, right? Like that. I think that's the game that I guess has the most potential for Xbox. Like looking at I'm looking at this list here, and it's hard to get excited about a lot of these things. I think perhaps unfairly. I don't know. It just feels like there's a lot of either risks or old franchises which perhaps won't hit the same way.
Are in a state of decay, would you say?
There's like State of Decay. There's like, if anyone's followed the Fable franchise's like history and knows how like badly that went in the last kind of attempts, then
that's kind of why I'm interested in Fable this time round, because it's a remake. They're starting again. So that could be, because there's something to be had in that franchise, and well,
yeah,
I don't know. I'm excited. I'm interested to see more, but I'm not even convinced that this is a this year thing.
No, potentially not. But then, like, also we've got an Indiana Jones game, which I don't know,
we've seen a CGI trailer of a table.
Yeah,
a glance. So, like that's the one that is. It's
I'm kind of excited
one.
about that. Like Perfect Dark.
That's a long ways out. I think that's had trouble development. That's getting supported by. Is it? It's not Square Enix. It's one of the formerly Square Enix studios. Is it Crystal Dynamics are helping out?
Yes, I think so.
I think it was, or Adios. It's one of the other ones. Cozy
so
in the chat will let us know the answer to that one.
Yeah. So to spin it back positively, I think you've got Hellblade 2, which, by all accounts, is going to be just a superb game from what we've seen of it. And then the other is Stalker 2. So I don't know how kind of much you've played the first one, but that game had massive acclaim.
Yeah.
And like the hype building for number 2 is like, you know, I don't want to say it's like reaching dangerous levels because it's hard to Chernobyl, but like it's getting there. And I think if either of those two games don't hit, it could be a very, very poor year for Xbox again.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of things on social media of obviously gaming outlets putting out like their 2024 ahead things and comparing and contrasting decisions. But in terms of the layout, there's a lot of sentiment around. It sounds like the same stuff we hear every year. Oh, Xbox is going to have a fantastic year. They've got a stacked lineup, and then what material? Like, there's no Gears in here, which I think a lot of people are expecting, like a sneaky Gears 6 to drop in at some point. That whether that's just under wraps and they've got more to show us, we'll soon see. But it seems like if you're an RPG fan, you're going to be eating good for the next 2-3 years. If you've got an Xbox and Game Pass at the same time. I'm in the same boat with you, Rob, around Stalker 2, where the more I've looked into it, the more intrigued I am. It's kind of looks like The Division meets World War Z in a way, and that has me hyped. I think we'll play it on stream and probably have a fantastic time.
I think with Stalker as well, I think there's a space as Call of Duty is when it's going so hard into multiplayer, effectively almost multiplayer only, and even when they do attempt to do single player stuff, they do a bad job of it. There's a place, I think, at the moment for a narrative-based first-person shooter. Oh,
absolutely, undoubtedly. And back to what you were saying about Senua, I haven't played the first one, but I know of its acclaim. It only takes about 6-7 hours to complete, so I think I'll probably play that when we finally get a locked-in date for the sequel, I'll probably just find like a weekend and play. I may even do it on stream just to get it out the way. But we know Richie's dad's going to go crazy for Flight Simulator 2024. That's a given. But other than that, I look at this and upon reflection of having Game Pass for probably, a year and a bit now, Richie, we've had our Series S's for.
Yeah.
Again, I'm excited to check all these out, but like what you're saying, Rob, there's nothing that's kind of like jingling my bells as such of being like, I cannot wait to play that. Yeah. Other than, like, the one for me is probably going to be Indiana Jones. That could be a total hit or miss, like the movies.
We don't know enough about it.
But that's
it. It could be Uncharted tier of narrative, or it could be, I don't know,
Dial of Destiny quality of Indiana Jones, like depending on what you're looking for. But the make or break for me is if they say it's first person. If they turn around and say I'm just going to see hands in a whip, it's like, and that could be it for me. But
yeah, well, that's my issue with Avowed. It looks cool, but it looks too much like an Elder Scrolls game. It's like, it looks very Bethesda, and I think you mentioned Starfield earlier in the show, Rob, like how you kind of just disappointed by it. I feel like Xbox in general are looking for that step up. I feel like PlayStation kind of made a step up in terms of the quality of the games last generation. Xbox haven't quite redefined their things yet. I don't think there's a bad game in this list, to be honest.
No.
But they're always going to feel like a lot of them are going to be second tier to other stuff that's out around about the same time.
Yeah, there's nothing really pushing
the issue.
Like outside of those top two ones which I mentioned, there's nothing really pushing boundaries. I don't think.
Well, yeah, I mean, the one I'm probably most excited for is Persona 3 Reload, because the original Persona 3 is very well acclaimed, but it was quite difficult to get back into with the remasters. And then I gave up when they announced that they were remaking it. But that's going to be a February game.
Yeah.
And that's going up against Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Like, it comes out earlier in the month, but do I commit to like what's probably a 100-hour game when I know I got Final Fantasy in a few weeks.
Again, like this is the thing we always keep saying: there's very little room for mid-level games anymore, is there? Like, there just isn't.
I don't even think these are mid-level. I just think they're not absolute top tier. I think that we're one step down. They're like high 8 out of 10, a lot of these games for me.
Yeah.
But when you're feasting on 9s and 10s routinely, it's hard to justify the time unless something really captures your imagination.
Yeah, it does. The other standout one for me on that list is Replaced. It's suffering from a similar situation to Stalker 2, actually, where it's a Ukrainian developer, so they've had to kind of relocate and work through the hardships of the invasion of their country to get to it. But Replaced is the 2D, I don't know if you guys remember, it's the 2D Cyberpunk-esque inspired one, so visually looks phenomenal, art style-wise. There's just something about this one. Yeah, there's something about this one. I think as soon as we saw the trailer at, I want to say Game Awards, maybe it might have been the showcase. It just stands out of like, this looks so fun to play through. And yeah, I think back to what you were saying, Richie, about the list is kind of, they all look like good games.
It's a solid list. But, it really is.
But like, where do you pick and choose from? And this is I guess without knowing the offering. I'm going into 2024 with like very minimal on my list at the moment, like for the whole year. Like, I'll inevitably play what's coming, but they also have to compete. And the reality with Game Pass and PlayStation and Switch is the third-party offerings as well, because we're going to get some huge titles from Nova, EA, Ubisoft, and the like. But who knows where that starts? Because again, I feel like they've all been very, very quiet.
There is one more game I think it's worth mentioning, and that's Clockwork Revolution. That's the one, Chris. Do you remember? I think it might have been a few years ago that was revealed that we thought it was going to be a Bioshock game. You're drawing a blanket, aren't you?
No, the audio cut out. It's done it a couple of times, but I'm presuming it's just from your end, and I'll pick it up on the audio afterwards.
All right, yeah. Well, I'll repeat it. It's Clockwork Revolution is that one that looked like a Bioshock game. When we first saw the trailer, we thought we were absolutely convinced it was going to be Bioshock, and then it wasn't. But I think that could be a great game in there, because it feels like something like Bioshock we've kind of been starved of for a while.
Well, we might expect a new Bioshock by the end of the year. Like that's the weird twist in that is the Cloud Chamber, I think, is the new studio. They've been quietly working on a new Bioshock entry for probably 3+ years now. So they could just come and like eat their lunch almost from under their nose of what it is. But yeah, Clockwork Revolution, South of Midnight, I think that's the Xbox variation that I think Rob was alluring to, where they almost look very samey. All of these games, and they were trying to do something a little bit different. So I think that's what Microsoft had wanted, and that's why they went after ABK, right, to just diverge the portfolio from just having RPGs. Yeah. RPGs all looking the same, and Bethesda kind of like filter over them almost.
Yeah, they need to diversify the portfolio, and that's why I think they've got a good relationship now with Sega for some of the JRPG stuff coming in, like your Personas, like your Yakuzas and stuff. But we should also mention Age of Empires, Age of Mythology Retold's due this year as well.
Oh, that's a good shout. Yeah, don't miss that one. I don't sleep on that one. Age of Mythology. Yeah, and obviously there's the PC counterpart to that. But I think Xbox have a solid year. I think they've got the value proposition stacked, because I think you are going to get a big game pretty much every quarter, which is what they've been aiming for since Game Pass launched. And I think after like 4 or 5 years now, we're finally getting to that point where the cadence, because they've got like 25, 30 studios now under their umbrella.
Insane, yeah.
Which is mad, and like I'm very curious to see how that spans over time and what Xbox do with it, whether the game's like hit or miss, because we've seen with Embracer, it's a tough gig to juggle that many essentially singular companies within one bigger network, all doing different things, all with running at different timescales, all with different leadership structures. And we maybe saw a little bit with I think they got burnt a little bit on Arcane and Redfall, realising like they need to get more hands-on.
Yeah.
And then you look across the pond to Embracer and see how a couple of bad hitters, and all of a sudden you're having to sell assets and get rid of things. And obviously Microsoft have the capital in the bank to never actually worry about that. They could take miss upon miss upon miss and still be the richest company on the planet. So there's no concern there. But in terms of like that Game Pass proposition, I think you are still eating incredibly well if you have an Xbox and you have a Game Pass in 2024. To pivot away from the games then, gents, we're also going to get a new console this year. we've got the cylindrical Series X, which was leaked as part of the hack. Was it a hack, or was it just one of their lawyers uploaded the whole file to public domain? Right, that was the thing.
Yeah, it was a data leak, not a hack. That's good.
Wasn't it part of? It was part of the ABK thing that, like, I think they accidentally submitted files.
Yeah, the whole court case was done and dusted.
That they shouldn't have done,
and it was like after the fact.
Yeah. Well, it was something that I think they had to submit some files and it accidentally included this information that was not necessarily related to the ABK case at all. Mm-hmm. But probably should have been like redacted or something. It wasn't. Yeah.
So we've got like those. Oh, there was also. Oh, what was the other game? Oh, there was Doom.
The Black Series S.
Yeah, Black Series S. Yeah. That's out. That's out now. That came out before Christmas. Yeah. But there's the cylindrical X. There's the new controller with the Cloud Direct feature, which would have been better for cloud gaming. And then there's a couple of game titles. One of them was actually, which we've not mentioned, Doom Year Zero, which we're guessing is a prequel to the Doom trilogy, duology that we just had. That could come out this year. The thing with the Bethesda published studios is they're actually quite well known for doing stealth drops. So I wouldn't be surprised if we got like a reveal of Doom Zero in the summer and it came out by the autumn, which would be awesome. We're probably on the cadence of a new Doom game. When did Eternal come out, Richie? 2019?
Yeah, it was Stadia.
So we're probably due like a new Doom game at some point. So throw that into the mix, and then you've got an amazing first-person shooter for GamePass too. So
my issue with Doom, what do you do with the next Doom game? Are you just going to make another Doom game?
Yeah.
Because I mean, but this goes into my whole thing where sometimes Microsoft do fall into the trap where they do too many iterations of a game where everything starts to feel a bit samey.
Yeah.
With the next Doom game, just come into the thing. It's more Doom. It's absolutely fine. It's a good game, but it's not particularly that interesting because it is just more Doom. Mm-hmm. Do they need to find another way to continue to elevate it?
Yeah.
I think that's the thing, is that there's no kind of elevation or pushing of boundaries, I guess.
Yeah. And that's what Starfield, I think, is a perfect example. It felt too much just like Skyrim in space a bit. It didn't feel like it elevated the genre the way I think everyone was hoping for. Still a good game, but I wanted more.
Yeah, it would have been a superb game in like 2017 or something, right? Like that type of.
It's such a delicate balance, isn't it, between making something new and continuing with an IP that works, because we've praised Sony for it with like the likes of Ghost of Tsushima and Horizon and like taking punts on these new franchises. Like we don't have an Uncharted 5, which I'm hoping for, but we don't have it yet. Mm-hmm. And it's been like nearly was 2000. It's been like 7-8 years since Uncharted Lost Legacy, so it's getting to that point where you would have thought we'd seen one, but they almost hold back. They didn't go back and do another Infamous. They didn't go back and do another Resistance. There's no more Killzone. So they have actually like grown. Whereas we're talking about getting a Gears 6, we've got Halo Infinite, which is like the 10th iteration of Halo. And you know what I mean? Like there is that almost like you can't do right for doing wrong in this industry, because people want new things, but they also love their old nostalgic things.
I think all them franchises you mentioned for Sony, I think Sony would happily go do it if the developer came to them with, this is what we want to do, we have a good idea for it.
Yeah.
But I think it seems to be, I think this is what my Xbox are trying to do a bit more of, rather than going, you're doing this, you're doing that, kind of empower their developers to kind of pursue the projects they're passionate about. I think that's where you get this level of innovation that Sony have had. Like having Naughty Dog just go, right, after Uncharted 4, Lost Legacy, okay, we started as a DLC, we've expanded it into its own standalone thing, but then we're kind of going, right, we're done with that, seemingly. Like, there seemed to be no interest in going back from Naughty Dog, and PlayStation go, yeah, it's fine, but that's allowed things like The Last of Us to flourish, and whatever else they're going to be working on beyond that.
Yeah.
Rather than just churning out the same game over and over again.
It's definitely a cultural shift. I think Phil Spencer's a massive advocate of, and again, it just takes time. That's it. Like we've got so much in the pipeline. Yeah, we'll have to see. So before we jump over to the PlayStation side of things, guys, I guess just a quick off the top of our heads a glance at like third party, because we haven't got it really in the dock officially, but there's going to be some probably big hitters. The big one for me is, my guess is we're going to see an Assassin's Creed Red, which is the feudal Japan one that's been teased. I mean, it's been like two half years since Valhalla now, so by the time we get to the end of 2024, you're talking like...
Yeah, but actually hasn't though, because Valhalla kept the amount of DLC for that game is ridiculous. So it's probably been about 6 months since the last DLC.
Not quite. Dawn of Ragnarok was over a year ago, but it's that cadence of remember it's a different studio that works in these games. There's 3 studios that rotate between Assassin's Creed games. Mirage was the kind of like a side piece, like an expanded content from Valhalla. So that was the same team from Valhalla who just workhorse through. So the team who should be doing Red essentially have had probably a 4-year run at this thing. Oh, we could get Hex. We could get a little horror game drop in as well.
I think you do that, and because Red is going to be the big one. And as much as I did actually enjoy Final Fantasy, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, it still just suffered from Ubisoft-itis a bit, and I think they need to Ubisoft still need to kind of, as I've said with Xbox, need to find a way to elevate their games a bit. But Ubisoft more so than Xbox. So I take as much time over Red as you need, because I think this could be really make or break for the franchise. In terms of critical reception, because Assassin's Creed sells.
I was going to say make or break, but Valhalla grossed over $1 billion in sales. So I think.
It's not. This is not a financial thing, but I think that's sometimes the problem Ubisoft can get into. They look at too much of the finances and not enough of how people are receiving the games.
I mean, at least they are kickstarting the year off with Prince of Persia. That comes out next week, I think, or just a few days after.
Which looks cool.
It does look cool.
2D side-scroller Prince of Persia Metroidvania game. That ticks a lot of boxes there.
It does, and its early previews have been great as well. Anything third-party from yourself, Rob? Are you hyped up for this year's Call of Duty, this year's FIFA?
Oh god, I could not care less. I think the 2 things are on my radar at the moment are both like bigger franchises. So we do a South Park game in is it May, I want to say? Something like that?
Yeah, but it's an online thing.
Oh, is it? Oh, it's so...
Is that the snow?
Wasn't
snow
it like
day?
a co-op
The snow
thing?
day.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
yeah.
Fuck that then. Never mind. So I guess the other one, which I believe is this year, but it may be actually drop into 2025, is the 40k Space Marine 2, which was due out earlier, but I'm not sure if it's the back end of the month. So yeah, like the Warhammer 5000 franchise is something I'd like kind of be getting back into from a lore perspective. Yeah. So Space Marine 2 is coming out of that one.
Yeah, Space Marine 2 looks awesome.
Yeah, it was like August, September, I think it was pushed back to.
Yeah, something like that, yeah. So I guess that's quite nice.
Skull and Bones next month not doing it?
I'm still not convinced this game's coming out. Like
again, we joked at the beginning.
We've played it.
We've played it, yeah. We got the beta access on the channel. Didn't really change my opinion on it, and I've not thought about it since we played it. So,
I mean, the remarkable thing is, like, they've had such an early beta release, which people can stream and make content around. And
yeah, it's risky.
I think I saw content for 4 days and then nothing, amongst the community. So
it's an odd one. We've got, I guess, just looking at
Black Myth Wukong is probably.
Yeah, I was going to say that's probably the big standout. It might be the Souls game for this year, kind of like Lies of P was for this year, where I don't think it'll win. I mean, it could sweep some awards, but my guess is it'll get really high praise, but not wider acclaim.
I'm trying to remember of all the games because we saw lots of trailers last year.
We did.
Some really cool stuff.
Suicide. We joked at the beginning of the show. Suicide Squad. This is WB's first game since Gotham Knights.
How are they going to top that? How are they going to top that game?
And then that's kicking February.
That's just gonna be a shit. I have absolutely no faith that game is gonna be good. I actually do hope I'm wrong.
I hope it comes out and gets 8s and 9s, and we're like, oh, you know what? I might. If it gets a good groundswell and people are talking about it, but I have no faith.
It needs a 9 to get my interest, to be honest.
Game Pass, maybe. Game Pass.
Yeah. Game Pass, if in a solid 8 and Game Pass, I'll definitely probably stream it.
I think it'll definitely
probably stream it.
Four months.
That's the quality you attach to this game. I'll definitely probably stream it.
I just don't care about the Suicide Squad.
Right, let's put a pin in that before we get into the same routine as we get into. Our audience clearly know we have no love for the Suicide Squad. If it was the Justice League game, we might all be super hyped for it. But just like the DCEU, this game could be dead on arrival. So then. Nothing much then from third party that we know of. Again, we'll get our usual entries and stuff. We'll see what happens there. I guess kind of rounding things out for the Xbox and connected front then, third party tying in with it, Activision Blizzard King is no longer third party. It's technically moved over officially into the Xbox camp. Do we see Call of Duty land on Game Pass this year? Do we see back catalogue? Do we see this year's entry? Like, where are our thoughts with what we're getting out of that?
I think next year. I don't think it's going to happen this year. To me, it's such a big
I think
beast.
there's still some legal challenges and stuff going on. Like, there's still a few question marks getting thrown backwards and forwards. There's still a few criticisms, I think, from like the EU and the UK about how this could impact gamers and stuff. So I don't think they're going to rock the boat too much.
Okay.
I don't think they're going to play the hand too early. And plus, I think Bobby Kotick has just left as well.
Yep.
So they'll be kind of going through a bit of a restructure internally, probably assessing all the projects they've got going on, what have been announced, what haven't been announced. I think there's a lot of like due diligence to do this year.
Mm-hmm.
And also kind of to start implementing the plans that I'm sure Microsoft have for it.
Yeah.
But it's one thing having the plans, then now you're in the reality, you have to adapt your plans to the reality. So yeah, I think you might see a few back catalogue games come to Game Pass, but with the conditions that they will probably also have to come to PlayStation Plus or something.
Yeah, you want to...
Because there's that kind of stuff hanging around.
You want to spread it out as well, don't you? Like, they could have a couple of major beats across the course of the year, and they could kickstart things off with going, some old content is now available. So you could take like your Crash Bandicoot trilogy, your Spyro trilogy, like all like the little less popular stuff than Call of Duty. Just go, right, there's a drop, happens in March, boom, you get a massive groundswell in March, and then as you're creeping closer to this year's Call of Duty, which isn't going in Game Pass, maybe drop some of the legacy ones. All of the World War games are there, all of the I can't think of the variations of Call of Duty now. All the Modern Warfare games are there, like all the old ones to build hype towards the new entry, and then next year,
I could see the retro ones being easier to move. The newer ones that still have like regular online player base, that's going to be harder to move to like Game Pass.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a good card to have in your deck for Microsoft though. Now they've finally signed the check and got it sealed.
I generally wouldn't be surprised if even in 10 years' time, the newest Call of Duty isn't on Game Pass. I think that might just be one of the kind of exceptions they just have to suck up for a long time, just with the deals of other companies. But yeah, I
mean, they could always sweeten the deal by doing like bonus perks, like PlayStation do, don't they? Where if you have Game Pass, you get all these Xbox specific cosmetics or something as like a little perk promo, but. That's okay. Call of Duty is unto itself.
I think it's going to be probably about maybe 4 or 5 years before we really see the fruits of this takeover.
Yeah.
Like, so when you start to see things like Toys for Bob and Vicarious Visions, whatever still exists of them, kind of pushing out content independent of like kind of the Activision stuff.
Yeah,
Blizzard, I think, is probably just going to just take over. I don't think you go too hard on the Blizzard stuff for now. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
So, interesting one. And as we said, PlayStation will still get them for many, many years to come as part of the agreement. But pivoting away to PlayStation then, gentlemen, busy year to start off with. But then, as I said, I alluded to earlier in the show, it kind of like drops off a cliff at that point. Kicking things off, we've got Helldivers 2 going head-to-head almost with Suicide Squad in February. Launching February 8th. And then we've got the big one, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, exclusive, coming out February 29th. Leap Year Day, and then Rise of the Run in March, end of March, and then after, which is the second party exclusive, looks like a potential Soulsborne-esque game, and then after that, it's pretty blank. We should say, I'll add in the news here that Metal Gear Solid Delta and Silent Hill 2 remake did have it wasn't really a leak, but PlayStation put out like a promotion for the year ahead in 2024 on the platform, and they just happened to throw in Metal Gear and Silent Hill as part of the promo artwork, and it was like, well, now people are going to lock 2024 in for these two games, which is awesome. Doesn't guarantee they're exclusives, not confirmed yet, but it probably looks like the marketing's aligned with PlayStation for these two due to the history and stuff with the franchises. But Richie, I'll start with you with PlayStation then. I'm hyped for Helldivers, you're hyped for Final Fantasy. What are we playing after March?
I haven't got a clue. To be honest,
it's weird, right?
I really, really don't know. It could be Wolverine, but I still feel it's maybe too soon for Wolverine.
Yeah,
unless it's right at the end of the year.
Looking at the leaks, it's still a while off. Still.
Yeah, Well, I mean, it could surprise us and go, Wolverine's going to be the big Christmas hit for PlayStation, but I wouldn't expect it before like November. Like, kind of take the same slot as Spider-Man did last year. For this year. But I would probably more likely say that's going to be the year after.
But that's a big gap between March and Christmas.
Yeah. But I really don't know. Like, I don't know what they're working on. It's like, Naughty Dog seem to be having troubles with just abandoning Last of Us factions or Last of Us Online. So we don't know how far along they're going to be in terms of the next big single-player project. So I think that's probably a few years off still.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of focus, actually, a lot of push into the multiplayer, like games as a
which
service
seemingly
space.
is now being pulled out from under. Now Jim Ryan's going, it seems like they're just backtracking on all of those promises, which, I mean, is my preference. But
it's dialing back, but that's a change of strategy, which means the developers have been working on it. Some of them will have the projects cancelled, which means they're going to be starting fresh on a new project or reprioritizing a project that was kind of the side gig that they were working on slowly.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think it might be a quiet year for PlayStation because of the change of like focus. And I think you probably will see a lot of things like Marathon, Fair Games, and these kind of games as a servicey stuff.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be the bulk of the year. I hope I'm wrong.
And this is where I think in the past PlayStation have done a lot better than Microsoft in terms of like strategically getting second party deals in. Like the Final Fantasy games from Square prop up a lot of their chunks of the year, and they have to do like minimum work to get these games. It's just like, oh yeah, we signed a deal, and then like you remember the Kickstarter last year off with Forspoken came out in the January, albeit it wasn't reviewer, but it's a first party game.
It was a miss, but it was there.
It was there, and it was probably part of the deal to get Final Fantasy. It was like you have to take Forspoken if you want Final Fantasy as well for the time. But then Rebirth going to be a massive game. It's no doubt going to get all its plaudits and it's expanded. It's huge, but that is only February.
Helldivers, Rebirth, and Rise of the Ronin are going to carry the first probably half of the year, I'd say.
Yeah, I'm looking at it thinking I might actually have time to go into my back catalogue. Yeah. Like I'm currently looking thinking I might after March, or not even March. If Rise of the Ronin is a Soulsborne, I ain't playing it. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, not mine. So once kind of Helldivers is done, I'm like, oh, do I have like a 2-3 month run to get these Resident Evil games?
Fantasy remake.
Nah, I don't know. It's different. It's not like what I liked about 16 is it was a fresh start, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I don't want to sour that experience by now committing to like a 3-part saga that's going to span over a decade. That seems like a big commitment.
Yeah, but you could do 2 back to back.
No, Rob, should I just go play Resident Evil? Well, it's a known quantity.
I would recommend it. Yeah, that's what I would do.
But I mean, we could get again Death Stranding 2. The turnaround time for Death Stranding 1. Remember, Kojima founded a studio, used a brand new engine, created a team, and got Death Stranding out within 3 years. So Death Stranding 2 would be on that now. So that could just be like a random drop in the back end of the year, end of autumn, start of winter.
I'm not sure that's his next game, though. What's the one he's doing with Xbox?
Overdose. I feel like that's a while.
I think Overdose was the next game. I think Death Stranding 2 is the one after.
Maybe.
Could be very still on the ground.
Yeah.
But other than that, there's a couple of games that we know. All of those games as a service ones that just don't really appeal to me. Marathon, Concord, we've not really seen enough of. Fair Games, still don't really know what the deal is with that one. But then, as you said, Richie, there's a lot of these studios that are like quietly chipping away that we could get out of nowhere at Ghost of Tsushima. I don't think we will, but we could. That Horizon multiplayer game, like if they come out and say that open world, future dinosaur robots, MMO, RPG, whatever that looks like, that could just randomly drop. But
that's something I wouldn't be... I'm not sure actually with that one, because last year they had the Call of the Mountain.
VR, yeah.
Yeah, so I think I'd say maybe that might be 1 year next year, because you got to give them time to actually work on it. To go from like, okay, he's a single player open world RPG to he's a VR experience and now he's an MMO. But it's kind of...
Wasn't the MMO not made by them? It was rumoured to be outsourced to, I want to say, Koei Tecmo or something. It wasn't them doing it.
Yeah, they're going to be involved though.
Oh yeah, to
There's
a degree.
no way they're not. But
do we think, actually, just off the back of that, do we think they make any effort with VR2 this year, PlayStation, or is this just a sunken cost and it's done? Like they didn't even support it year one. Like how much have they talked about VR2 in its entire launch window?
They talked heavily about it for the first half of the year.
I'd say first week if that.
But I don't know. I think there was quite a bit the first half. Not as much as you'd like in terms of the quality, but I think there was stuff. It seemed to be the first half of last year for PlayStation was VR2, and it didn't work the way they wanted to. If it's either just dead in the water, or they're going to regularly support it this year, but more quiet. I imagine this is going to be a bit more behind the scenes, quieter. But I think they still support
But this is the problem they've had, though. Still, like, if we're going into the second year of VR2 and none of the first-party studios are working on anything, does that not tell you something about their belief in their own product? That they've not gone to their first party and went, right, you need, like, Sony, Insomniac, Naughty Dog, Insomniac, we need you guys to make up a team. Let's get a VR title out that's first party, and there's just nothing.
They could be working on it, but maybe they just didn't change the strategy like last year when they didn't sell what they were expecting. So rather than like pushing this hard, they've just, okay, you can deprioritize these projects a bit, still work on them, and they'll come when they come.
I think
that also means that between the between the if they've changed the strategy on VR and they've changed the strategy on games as a service, it means it might be quite quiet this year in terms of the single player narrative stuff.
I think what they're doing is they're going to see how the Quest 3 does, and then also importantly how Apple's VR headset lands. Yeah, because that could like just put the actual the entire sector on steroids.
That's a good shout, that Rob. Yeah, Apple usually they bring the gravitas of all the sheeple who follow them into like just whatever it is, even though it costs
they bring the mass market, don't they?
Even though it costs like $3 and a bit grand, so it's infinitely more than the Quest and the VR2. You're right. If Sony have the tech already lined up, built, ready to go, they could just see an absolute boon in interest from Apple stepping into the market, and then it could be revitalized. So yeah, that's a great shout.
Yeah, VR actually could just this. Like third party could be the savior of the PSVR rather than focusing on the first party studios on it. You might get one big first party studio game a year, plus all the third party stuff. That might be the strategy for it.
I mean, we saw right at the back end, Richie, we got caught out with Asgard's Wrath getting a 10 out of 10 across the board on the Quest, and it was like, and that's the pack-in launch game, and it was like, oh shit, everyone was just saying it's like Skyrim in VR, but like better.
But if that's got a timed exclusivity, then that breaks it over at PlayStation VR2 next year. That's a good hit.
It was bought. The studio's owned by Meta. It was one of them where it was like PlayStation could have snapped them up a few years back, like in prep. Like just think, Asgard's Wrath could have been a PSVR2 launch game.
See, that's when you've made a mistake.
Yeah,
like,
it's investing.
You're not building dedicated studios for it.
But it's all money, right? And that's the problem. On the topic of money, we praise Game Pass and what we're going to get this year and every quarter stacked. PlayStation Plus, what do you want to see out of PlayStation Plus for 2024? They've upped their cloud interest. Richie, you actually praised them just before Christmas about how well their cloud performed for Lego Fortnite. It just ran so good.
Seamless.
Anything you just said as well, you also cancelled your subscription for premium. So what could they do to get you back?
Actually, their cloud performance over Christmas when I played Lego Fortnite was a lot smoother than when we played Halo 2.
Oh.
So I just credit where credit's due there. For me, I don't really know. It depends how the back half of the year, because I think I'm already fairly stacked for the first half of the year, really, in terms of how long it takes me to play games. Between Persona 3, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Plague Tale, potentially Rise of the Ronin, potentially Helldivers, potentially going back to like Jedi Survivor. I've got quite a lot there, so I think it would be difficult really for PlayStation this year to get me to up my subscription this year.
Yeah. Do you think if they had some... I mean, they're not going to do it, that's the thing, isn't it? It's weird because you can't... Like, these two beasts, you can't really compare at all, because PlayStation, what they could do for an easy win is drop a first-party game in there, day one, but they're not going to do that. Like, they've came out and actively said, we hold them at a premium value. They're never going to do that. Like, Nintendo will never do that. So,
but the big reason I dropped my subscription to just the essentials was mainly financially motivated. So it's like, you've got to really give me the value. And so even the first party games, like, if it's 70 quid, it's like, is that worth upping my subscription or versus buying the game? I'd have to weigh it up. But I think I'm probably not. I think if they wanted to, if they were targeting me, they should be targeting me in 2025 to go back to premium rather than 2024.
Yeah, get you on the next kind of run around.
Make me regret my decision now.
Yeah, so you lament it. So moving away from the subscriptions then, Rob, to combat Microsoft, do we see a PlayStation 5 Pro this year? We had the Slim launch just before Christmas, the phasing out the old SKU. PlayStation have actively said, like, we believe in these like little mini bumps mid-generation. Xbox came out and said we don't believe in them, but then leaked a new console in the Cylindrical X. Obviously not necessarily with much change under the hood, but PlayStation, after we're going into its 4th year now? We're essentially mid-life, so a Pro, by looking at the PS4's cadence, a Pro should be on the horizon, probably back end of this year.
Like, in theory, I guess, but I don't know about you guys, but I feel like people really aren't, like, scratching the surface of what the PlayStation 5 base is kind of capable of. And there's not, like, a gigantic loud fan on it, or like, you know, like, I think the only reason to update the PS5 currently would be aesthetically, which the Slim already does, right? So I don't know, I'm not really seeing a technical need to do it. Whether they do it just to cash in a bit is another thing, but I don't know, I'm not really seeing the technical requirement yet. Maybe because, like, the PlayStation 5 probably got off to, I'd argue, one of, like, the slowest, like, kind of
COVID
releases, right? Yeah, like, maybe it's that, but I don't know, I just feel like it's not particularly necessary right now.
It's an interesting one because, like, when your consoles, from what we know, is beating out your rival, like in Xbox, it's beating out 3-1 globally. Like, do you need to make it? But then there's that, like, keeping up the marketing trends and, like, staying ahead of the curve with, like, being able to tout the most powerful console. Because if Xbox ain't going ahead with a revision, aside from just aesthetically, then there's your chance to jump in and say, like, not only is PS5 outselling 3-1, it's also got a new, even more powerful iteration that's going to give you even better quality performance games for the year. It's such an interesting kind of, like, game you play with investment in research and development and how you get them out. It's a curious one.
Well, I think what's interesting is if you look at how the life cycle of console generations are getting longer and longer, I think this is going to be the longest console generation so far. So while I feel time-wise, if you compare it to PS4, we're getting close to that mid-generation point, I think we're still in the first third, almost. I think there's still a long way to go. I mean, constantly things getting pushed further and further and further with PC. But I think I'm playing Final Fantasy 16, and I struggle to see where the improvements will come from. You could put things like real-time ray tracing in there, have it running at 200 million frames per second, stuff like that. But you don't actually need that. I think you're getting diminishing returns. Yeah, it can look prettier and prettier and prettier and prettier. But I think you don't necessarily need to do it, and they seem to be, like, consolidating their production line as well. Instead of having two SKUs, they've consolidated that down to a single one, plus a smaller production line for the disk drive. So I don't think they're going to open up a second SKU just yet. I think maybe next year or maybe the year after. Yeah, we might do that. Yeah, it could be actually we've consolidated down to one SKU now. Then in 2 years' time, we're going to up it to bring in the Pro. Yeah,
we could also, again, like, just looking at, like, the wider picture is like, financially, like, the world is in a place where I don't want to spend another £500 on a new console. Like, no, I will if it comes about, but I don't want to. Like, I'd quite happily sit there.
The thing is, I'm playing through a 1080p monitor. There's no reason for me to upgrade. I'd have to upgrade my TV or my monitor to get the use out of it. So what's the point?
Yeah, but you're not the tech enthusiast market that, like, wants to have the latest and greatest.
But I still think the default in majority of people in the homes will probably still got 1080p TVs. So we're already it's moving, but I think we're already beyond that. I don't know. I'm not quite sure there's a need just yet.
Well, speaking of 1080 then and old ass tech, let's move on to our final pillar of today's discussion, which is Nintendo and what their future looks like. Now, it's an interesting one because the subscription service we've slightly joked at, they don't really the NES Nintendo Online, sorry, they don't add much to it in terms of games. Richie's went to find his old Switch or something. I'm not too sure. In terms of the games, though, Rob, the kind of run for 2024 very much seemingly is just a couple of remakes. We've got Mario vs. Donkey Kong GBA remake. We've got Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, which I don't know why they're calling it. That's for Richie. Shout out to Richie, that one. 1080p HD, which is a 3DS remake. We've got Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door remake. And then we've got a new game in the form of Princess Peach's Showtime. And then Metroid 4, we suspect might come this year. But everything on that list for me is telling us that the Switch is definitively at the end of its life cycle. And these games are there just to pad out the library until they announce a Switch 2.
I mean, as someone who is not in the Nintendo ecosystem, this gives me like no desire to jump in. Like,
you mean Luigi's Mansion 2 HD 3DS remake isn't pulling you in?
I mean, like Metroid Prime 4, yeah, okay, but no, it's just there's nothing on there that's going to pull me into Nintendo at all.
I totally get it. I think me and Richie said in our kind of end of year review that we did our wrap up for Switch, and I think I'd played maybe 5 hours on my Switch this past year because there was no Pokemon game to lure me in. I wasn't into Breath of the Wild, so I obviously didn't pick up Tears of the Kingdom. And there's not really. I haven't been back to play Mario Kart because that game's like how old now, and I only ever really play it with my wife anyway. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like what is pulling me in? Like games like Sea of Stars and stuff, I got free on GamePass and PlayStation Plus. So I didn't want to buy it on Switch when I've got it for free elsewhere. So it's an odd one, but yeah, we were just saying in terms of the loadout, Richie. I guess hardware wise, this has got to be the year we get a Switch 2, right? Got to be.
Yeah, I think so. I think if I predict, I think it's going to be this list of games is the kind of the last hurrah for the Switch. I think potentially Metroid Prime 4 might have even been moved to the next console or cross generation or something. I could see that being the cross generation game that it comes out with. He's our big first party title to launch the sequel to the Switch, but it does really feel like this is the last year of the Switch as we know it. I think it needs to be.
I mean, it's what, 9-year-old?
Switch. It's amazing what it can run. The fact it runs Tears of the Kingdom is just insane to the quality it does, but it does feel dated. The hardware in it was dated when it came out.
Yeah, it was already a generation behind. Now it's 2.
Yeah, I think the world is ready for the successor, and to be honest, what I want the successor is, I want another Switch that's just more powerful in every single way that I can just chuck in my same dock.
Yeah.
I literally just want a Switch 2, a Switch Pro, something that is just to modern standards. Doesn't necessarily need to match the PS5 at the top end, but if it can match, say, my Series S in terms of performance, and that I can stick in my dock over there. That's a big thing I'd ideally like, that I could use the same peripherals and the same that I already have.
Have you met Nintendo?
Yeah, I have, unfortunately. They didn't even keep the same dock within SKUs of the Switch, which is such a stupid decision. Because I always thought one of the cool things about the Switch is I could just go to your house with my Switch and put my console in your dock.
You don't be putting your console in my dock without asking permission.
Yeah,
that's a bit.
But when they started changing up the docks and stuff, and like even on I remember the Switch Lite, like why didn't they just make the controllers detachable, so you could put your current ones on if you wanted to? But I don't know. Nintendo do weird stuff.
Nintendo. I think you're right.
It's going to be a VR console or something. It's going to be an AR not even VR. It's going to be AR.
It's all going to be made of cardboard.
Yeah.
Remember that? Remember the cat? Yeah. What was it called? Labo. God, Labo. Yeah, Nintendo Labo. They are some quirky folks over there. I think you're right in saying it's winding down. I think we're definitely going to see some big titles. I do think Metroid Prime 4 it's not a strong enough title to launch with. I don't know. I could see them.
Metroid Prime was very, very well revered.
Yeah, but does it sell? It's like Nintendo's arguably 5th, 6th franchise down the list. Like if you take out Smash Bros, Mario Kart, Mario Odyssey, Zelda, I feel like it gets lower down the list you go.
If they're smart, the successor to the Switch will be fully backwards compatible. So that might be this is the big phone that's going to showcase the platform. Or well, you can get a slightly improved version of like Tears of the Kingdom as well.
True.
So you could get Tears of the Kingdom. Imagine like, okay, get Metroid Prime 4, and also Tears of the Kingdom will now run at 60 frames per second with like ray tracing. Well, maybe not ray tracing, but like at like maybe 2K resolution or something like, or full 1080p on the actual console itself.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Tears of the Kingdom was supposed to be a launch title, and then because the Switch has been selling so well, thought like we'll just keep selling the old SKU, keep making money, and then launch with that dual crossover. The big one for me though is we haven't had the Mario Odyssey team follow up, and it's been like 7 years they've been working on something now, and it's like there's got to be another 3D Mario game imminent. There has to be.
There's a triple hitter there. You get like a new 3D Mario as launch. An up-res version of Tears of the Kingdom with higher frame rate. This is just like not even necessarily a remaster, just turn the sliders up kind of thing. A Metroid Prime 4, that's your launch window. That's pretty solid.
And if
you make it backwards compatible, so things like you can continue playing Mario Kart 8.
It better be backwards compatible. I think you're missing a big, similar to what Phil Spencer said about if you lose that generation, if Nintendo just leave behind the 120 million people who bought Switch and you have to start anew. I think that's very risky in today's world, especially with people's digital libraries, and the Switch is, for a lot of people, a digital console because it's portable. So, risky. Do we think we see another Mario Kart soon? Like, they can't just, like, leave. I know they did the DLC for Deluxe, but, like, that game's, like, 10-plus-year-old now.
It was this Wii U game.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think they do. I think it's time for a new Mario Kart. Like, I don't know when. I think they might... If they're going to launch with an actual mainline Mario game, as I suggested, I think that was probably the year after you do a Mario Kart. Because you don't want to like chuck all your big games out in one go and then suddenly left with nothing for the rest of the generation. But I'd expect maybe like a Zelda game later in this life cycle in maybe about 4 or 5 years. I think they're going to take a little bit of a break and rethink, because they've already said the Tears of Kingdom Breath of the Wild is done now.
Yeah.
So now what's the new vision for Zelda kind of thing again?
Yeah, where do we go with it?
Smash is done as well, though.
Well, that was the thing when they give everything Deluxe and Ultimate, and it's like they give them all these definitive names where they weren't no longer numbered.
Well, Smash Ultimate was kind of billed as the last Smash. I think the devs who make it were just kind of done with it. So I think that gets ported forward, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. If you do like an up-res or something.
Yeah, but it's an interesting one. I guess if they do get Switch 2 out, the benefit that will come with that is the more power under the hood means that they can now start to reach out to third-party publishers again, because I saw an article yesterday which was one of the most asked questions is The Sims available on the Switch? And it's not. And it's the fact that the EA haven't supported it yet. Like, Nintendo still have that issue where third-party games just either can't run on it, won't run it, or they have to give an inferior version. Which we've seen Ubisoft dabble sometimes. A lot of them do support. Microsoft, with part of their FTC Activision deal, said they will bring Call of Duty to the Switch or its subsequent platforms. So Nintendo could be about to see a boon of third-party content for the first time because of the more power.
Ubisoft could be a great get, and if you could get Ubisoft Plus on it with cloud gaming, so they need to improve the Wi-Fi capabilities of the device massively. If you could get that, so then you've got the entire Ubisoft library, you just doubled your library instantly. And then if it's running at the same quality as say the Series S, then you're going to get the third party stuff. Nintendo are masters at like maximizing the use of the hardware, but their development engines specifically for that console, where EA isn't, and I think that's where the problems come in. But if you get like things like modern Unity engines and modern etc. running very well on it, suddenly you've opened the floodgates.
Yeah, it's a lot to be said. In terms of their subscription model, do we think Nintendo Online ups their game, or do you think it just gives like DLC content for Pokemon away with it? Still,
I don't know. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if they scrapped the whole thing and did something completely different and pointless. I like the current Nintendo Online thing. It's relatively low cost. It's like 30-35 quid for the expansion a year. It currently runs up to N64. You could maybe start seeing GameCube stuff come through.
I could see that.
Potentially, although they have been known to like just remake GameCube games in the past. So, yeah, maybe I don't know. There's even things like you get into the weeds of the handheld side because it currently goes as far as Game Boy Advance. After that, it's the DS, and that 2-screen thing becomes problematic. How do you handle that?
Yeah. With an attachment peripheral, Nintendo's most beloved, cherished thing. Let's give them something you stick to your Switch.
I wouldn't be surprised. I've got an N64 controller for my Switch, so
they're willing. They're willing and capable of doing it. The dual Switch.
Yeah.
That's it.
A second screen.
That's it. The Switch 2, Richie, is actually just going to be another Switch that you attach to your current Switch. And
it's a Switch that you can turn into a Nintendo 3DS.
A giant 3DS, a novelty size one. Maybe, but we won't have to wait too long to find out. But I think we can all agree it's an exciting, albeit an odd start to the year, where we don't really know as far into the future as we probably would traditionally. And as a gamer, that leaves me both worried and excited, because that means we might get a Nintendo Direct. Usually they do one in February, is the cadence. We might even, by the time we record next week's show, we might have a date for the Developer Direct for Xbox, which is rumoured to be, I think it was January 19th was the rumour I saw swirling around over the weekend. And then a PlayStation Showcase, which should have been back in September, then should have happened in October, then November, then December, and here we are in January. Hasn't happened yet, so we can learn all about their first parties. Now Spider-Man is out the door, Valhalla DLC is out the door. What are they working on over at that place? And yeah, Nintendo do what Nintendo do. Last couple of bits of news just to round out the week. We'll just go through them quickly, gents, so our audience can get back to their daily lives. God of War Remastered. Rumoured. There's been things swirling around about that. Any quick thoughts on it?
The original.
I like it.
I need to finish the God of War refresh and Ragnarok, so it's well down on my list.
Yeah, you're not going to go back and start that. For me, it's one that I'd never played them before, and as 2018 was so good, and then Valhalla was so good, I think I'm kind of just content drawing a line under that and saying the franchise begins here for me. I don't want to go back, even though it would just add more context to Kratos' backstory and stuff. I feel like they're definitely a frozen in time, more action-heavy type game, which in my mind, that's not what I picture God of War as anymore. How about you, Richie?
I think I'm exactly the same. I like the fact that they're going to exist. I'm not against playing them at some point, but it feels like, they rebooted the franchise for a reason. Yeah,
agreed. Next story, Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 is being teased for GamePass. This comes from Pure Xbox. It's over there. Now, the classics have been in the discussion for quite some time, but they popped up as part of, the little notification pop-ups you get on your dashboard. One of them popped up saying just rediscover Baldur's. It said in the little memo, Mystical Realms, set your adventure, Prophet of Truth, play Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 with Game Pass. So that's quite explicitly an error that's led to it definitively coming. So, Richie, you're the Baldur's Gate guy, if anyone is here. 1 and 2, you said the classics unto themselves. Would you go back, or is that 200 hours of your life you don't have?
More than 200.
Just for one.
Well, it'll probably be about 100 each. I will go back and play these at some point again, because they are games that every few years I will go back and replay. They're just in that kind of category of game.
Mm-hmm.
I already own them multiple times. So I like the fact they're coming, but I'm guessing they're just going to be the Beamdog Enhanced Edition versions that I already have on Steam.
Do you think these are console?
Yeah.
By any chance?
Maybe. That might be interesting to see how they pull that off, because these were very much not console games.
But obviously 3 is now, and then we know Microsoft has done...
things like City Skyline works. So.
Yeah, and Age of Empires, they've gone back and done great stuff for that with the user interface. Yeah. So
yeah, it could be.
New audience.
Could be.
So yeah, Baldur's Gate 3 news as well. We will touch on some Amazon Luna news to kickstart the year. Again, we could do a whole episode reflecting on last year, and I think we touched on it briefly in our end-of-year review of what they could do. We might touch on it more next week if we've got a bit more time. But they've announced some Prime games for January. We have Control Ultimate Edition, 2019 Game of the Year. Yeah, again, it launched with Luna. It's there as a Prime game play. Young Souls, we've got a first look up on the channel that me and Richie did back in the day. Katari Fables and Wonder Boy The Dragon's Trap are there to claim if you are an Amazon Prime member. On top of the free-to-play Fortnite and Ubisoft's Trackmania, you can also jump in and play these games for the month of January with your Prime subscription. I mean, shout out to Control. I think I said I've just finished Alan Wake 2 and then went back to the Alan Wake DLC in Control. Ties it all together amazing. Remedy doing some terrific stuff, but Does that make Amazon Luna and Prime worth it for this month? Nope, not for me. And then to pivot away, because you can't have the good without the bad, more games are coming and leaving Amazon Luna. Back to that cadence of some big things leave. We've got coming soon Rescue Party Live, Yakuza 6, Song of Life. Rob, any idea which Yakuza this one is?
Oh, I don't know.
It's our resident Yakuza expert. 6, a Song of Life. I feel like every time I read about them, they have a new name as well.
It's like a recurring door. Like one comes in on Prime and then one leaves, and you can't tell the difference. I have no idea.
Yakuza 6: A Song of Life is joining the remastered versions of 3, 4, and 5, which are already on Luna. So Sega and Luna clearly have a thing going. Also, we're getting Garfield's Lasagna Party.
Oh, but yeah, we wait for that one to drop.
Big shout to that one. However, there are some other titles leaving as well. So it seems that it's just this cadence of we don't know what or when goes. They need to sort that out for this year, but I'm not going to go into it now at the end of a 1.5 hour episode talking about the future of games, but I think Luna and Amazon need to take a big look at themselves for this year, and they're either in or they're out, because sitting in this weird middle ground where there's no real communication, there's no in what was the best year last year for video games ever in history, in my opinion, they had none of those games, not even like indie game of the year, which they could have got. Because it's an indie studio. They could have went to them with a couple £100,000 and went, can you put that on? And we could have had Sea of Stars on Luna. But we didn't. We didn't have any of the big hitters. Nothing. So
it reminds me a lot of Stadia.
But then even Stadia had Cyberpunk, Richie. It had that year's FIFA. It had Baldur's Gate 3.
In year one.
I mean, this is what, year 2, 3 for Luna? So they should be infinitely better
what I'm saying
further
is,
on.
This reminds me of Stadia in year 3.
All right, okay.
As it's,
phasing out. And then finally, I don't even know which story I want to end on. Let's just end on the Mickey Mouse story because it's creepy as shit. Mickey Mouse Steamboat Willie, the original cartoon from back in 1924, has gone into the public domain, which now obviously means that we get a horror game based on it. We got Winnie the Pooh one a few last year, and now we're getting basically a Five Nights at Freddy's inspired by the black and white Mickey Mouse. Which does look scary, but public domain, everything's going to be going into it. So Philly Boots on that one, and then we round out every show every week by looking back at this day in video game history. We're recording on January the 6th, so gentlemen, you have the list up. Any jump out games from back in time?
No.
Rob, anything for you?
I echo that. Basically, it seems very. It seems like the lull of January has been persistent in history, going back even to the 80s. Digimon World 4, I guess, is like
You have no idea what that game is.
No, but it's a really recognisable franchise I can see, so...
That's the thing. I think this is the first time we've done one of these where I've looked at the list and go, I don't recognise a single game here.
No, I'm skipping ahead a few days. So January the 8th, we had Super Contra, came out in Japan 36 years ago, and Alien vs Predator, 1993. 31 years ago.
Prince of Persia: Sands of Time, January the 8th.
Mobile.
Oh, mobile, sorry.
Yeah, not even the original, just a port to mobile. And then a bunch of other stuff. So apparently January, not a great month for games, but maybe February's better. We do have Suicide Squad launching after all. But other than that, that brings us to an end to this week's episode of the GamerGuild Podcast, where every week we get together and round up all the video game news for your listening or viewing pleasure right here on youtube.com. Also available up there in the digital clouds on your podcast platform of choice. Thank you very much for tuning in for this week's show. Thank you very much for joining us for 2024 as we kickstart the year off. Don't forget to join us this Thursday for our part 2 of our Halo live stream, and keep following us for all the other stuff. We do have a very vibrant Discord. Jump into that if you want to continue the conversation. There's a great group of people over there. But that's been it for this week. My name's been Chris.
I've been Richie.
And I've been Rob.
And remember, everyone, play it whatever makes you the happiest. Have a great start to your year, and we'll see you next week. Goodbye.
Bye.